Today is also unity, and I want to talk a little bit about patriotism. Okay, so there are wars and rumors of wars, right? Iran is on the table. I guess this administration is making threats. We already had an assassination. There are threats of more bombings and also troops being deployed. Who's okay with this? 866-801-8255. I want to put some perspective on it because when I was listening today, I remember being in college. I remember being in the gym in college the day we bombed Libya. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 1986, Operation El Dorado. It was an airstrike by the United States against Libya. It was Tuesday, April 15th, 1986. I know where I was. I can tell you exactly how I felt. I had a pall come over me. I had it was dread because in that strike against Libya, allegedly a little girl was murdered. 40 some odd Libyans were also killed, but I remember Muammar Gaddafi's baby girl, Hana Gaddafi, was murdered. And I remember thinking, my little teenage mind, this man's going to retaliate. We killed his baby. Like, what's going to happen? And it was the first time in my life that I was actually afraid that we were going to go to war, like really go to war. It was the first time I remember being afraid. And what that all meant. Now, after that, just 5 years after that was Operation, Desert Shield, 1991, Operation Desert Shield. And I remember this was galvanized by Whitney Houston during the Super Bowl. We're about to come up on a Super Bowl, Gulf War. I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember actually I went out and bought a bunch of little flags and little teddy bears, and I was going to sell them because this was the moment that Americans came together. I could still choke up hearing that. This was the culmination of Desert Shield. We had won that particular war, and put up air quotes, February. This is, of course, during the Super Bowl, 1991, Whitney Houston donning the red, white, and blue. She had on a red, white, and blue stars and stripes sweatshirt, and her hair. I mean, it was amazing. And I knew Americans came together for that. I don't know if you remember that moment. I know that song ended up number one. That national anthem ended up becoming the number one most downloaded song. Did we have downloads back then? No, it was the purchase. People were purchasing the single. During my parents' generation, it was Bay of Pigs, right? Bay of Pigs was a big thing. Before my grandparents' generation, there was World War II and the airstrikes and the fear. What was it? You had to get under the desk. They had all of these drills.
Duck and cover
to protect yourself, pending. We were afraid. I actually thought when we bombed Gaddafi that it would set off World War III. I thought that's how scared I was. Is this that? Do we have the same? And here's, I'm asking this question because there may be a draft. I don't want to be hyperbolic, all right? But this might set forth another draft, and we're going to get into that in a second. I have a feeling that Americans, and I am fiercely American, are not in line with what's going on right now with Iran. And I have a feeling that a lot of Americans don't trust our government. And here's the thing, you erode trust after 9/11 when we went into Iraq and we found out that there was no yellow cake, no uranium, there were no nuclear weapons, that was not an imminent situation. We did not have to take out a sovereign leader. You erode, then we did the Patriot Act. We gave up all of these rights. You start to not trust the government, and this government has done very little to engender trust. So I'm asking this question today, those of you who are fiercely patriotic, as I am. How do you take this current situation that we're in? What do you do? There've been a lot of chatter on Twitter, on social media platforms about what people aren't going to do if called. But they're laws, right? Are you brave enough to do what Muhammad Ali did? 866-801-8255. What are the consequences to us not showing up for this country? Do you want, and I feel like there was a time when we knew who the enemy was, right? We knew Bay of Pigs, the communists, We knew we were fighting communism during Vietnam. We knew we were fighting communism during Korea. We knew what we were fighting. Gorbachev, take down that wall. We knew what we were fighting against, right? Then it became this jihadist thing. And that got a little murky, I think. Because on one hand, I just did a podcast about this that's probably going to run tomorrow. We funded Islamic terrorists to fight Russia because we justified that, right? They're fighting Russia, the Mujahideen, right? In Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden, we armed and trained Osama bin Laden to fight the Russians, and he did and won. I'm not sure what happened. Something happened because he turned on us, right? Or did he? So this is the thing. I don't trust what I hear. I don't trust any of the experts. I don't believe the things that are being said. I don't know what the truth is. So it's hard to muster the kinds of emotion because we need some of that. We need belief, emotion. We need trust. We need all of that to go into war and win. And let me just be clear. I don't want to live anyplace else. I just got back from Africa. I don't want to live anyplace else. This is my country. My ancestors built this country. I don't want to leave. But it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And I say this to say, here's the good news. We have an election coming up in 2020. We can do something about it. We are in a republic. We have a democracy. We don't have to sit with this. But will we show up? Or will we let petty differences? Because we're going to talk about that today. Julian Castro just endorsed Elizabeth Warren. Why not Biden? Oh, I don't know. Bloomberg just got endorsed by Judge Judy Shah. I mean, there's a lot happening. There are people that won't show up to vote if their candidate isn't the nominee. Like, do we have the luxury to sit home as this is going on? Will Trump pull some shenanigan when we're in war to not be removed? Because Bloomberg did that. Bloomberg did something similar. He got a third term that he didn't deserve to get as mayor of New York. Excuse me. And I remember I was like, "Why? So we're in wartime. So you get another term, or that first term didn't count. So you get power's a damnable thing, isn't it?" Well, we're going to talk about that. I teach, right? People probably know that. I'm a professor. I teach at Hunter College. I've been there for, 17 years. I've been there 17 years. Lord Jesus, it's been a long time. And I remember talking to my students about this because if you have student loans, if you take out federal loans, you automatically are signed up, entered into the draft automatically. Did you know that? By signing over those papers, right, you are also giving them because you're taking their money. You understand? There's an exchange here. I didn't know that. A couple of my students brought it up, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. So this went on Twitter this weekend. A couple of folk on Twitter users kept posting messages and memes insinuating that the draft or selective service is what it's called, will be put into place within the next few weeks or few months. They also suggested that college-age students would be prioritized for service, which is a fact, especially if you have student loan debt. Well, selective service went to Twitter, and they responded. They said there's no reason to panic. That's what they said. I don't believe them. They assured Twitter users that there's no active draft at this time and that the department is conducting business as usual for now until they're not. So here's how it works, actually. And there is something when you sign up for student loans, you are automatically entered in, right, into selective service. But this is how the draft actually works. Any person assigned the sex of male at birth who is between the ages of 18 and 25 they are required to register for the draft. Required. Eligible citizens are required to register within 30 days of turning 18, and immigrants must register within 30 days of entering the United States. Fact. If someone who is eligible for the draft has not yet registered, they're generally unable to get federal financial aid for higher education. So that's the exchange, right? If you haven't, you aren't going to get federal aid. They offer applicants a way to register for the draft in the aid application. So as you apply, you're signing away your rights and don't know it. So I'm letting you know. If you got student loan debt, and you're a man, natural born, sex assigned at birth. So then I want to pause here for a second because there are a lot of people who believe, equal rights for all, right? Why aren't women also naturally signed up. Okay. I'm just going to put that over there. We won't talk about that today. All right. Draft exemptions include males currently in the armed services and on active duty, not including members of the Reserve and National Guard who are not on active duty, males under the age of 18 at the time they complete their FSA, non-citizens of the United States who came to the country after turning 26, and transgendered males, not eligible. Eligible males who forego federal student loans and do not go to college are not omitted from the draft. Those who choose to not register are susceptible to a felony charge and a fine up to $250,000, a prison sentence up to 5 years, or a combination of both. So, Donald Trump II Jr., there's I guess a picture floating around with him it was an AK-47 with a Hillary Clinton behind bars painted onto the shaft where you click in the bullet rifle, the magazine, and he looks so tough, right? I mean, I'm being sarcastic. This is a guy that goes and flies to foreign countries to kill elephants and kill animals, living animals, some of them on the endangered. Like he gets off on this. It tells me how small a person he is, both inside and out. It tells me how weak a human being he is, but that he's smiling with this giant gun, this big gun with Hillary's picture on it. A man that would never serve. Your father never served. 5 deferments. And I want to say this, the draft benefits people who are wealthy, because they rarely have to go. Listen, when you think about tying your financial aid to your selective service, who are you saying this to? You're not saying this to the wealthy. The wealthy aren't taking financial aid packages. So you're setting it up, and this goes back to the Civil War. If you listen to the 1619 Project and on their podcast, and you read the amazing work that was done there at the New York Times, you'll see that the people that fought for the right to own people, the people who fought for the right to own people, the majority of them never owned anybody. They were poor. The wealthy sent poor people to fight on their behalf. They never fought. This is the same thing now. Trump didn't fight, and all of his cronies at his country clubs, they didn't serve. And when I think about the Kennedys who weren't rich to begin with, they used the military as part of the foundation to build the legacy of Camelot, right? So they did serve, but they served with a purpose. You understand? The majority of people who went to Vietnam were not wealthy. They were not. And the majority of people who are going to be fighting in this particular war, sent by wealthy or not wealthy, sent to die, the wealthy will not. 866-801-8255. I have a problem with people who are running a country that they will never fight. And then to have that Trump picture out there, that son, with that gun, with that smile, with that smugness, while people's children are being shipped off to go fight your daddy's mess, he ought to be ashamed of himself. But more importantly, where are the people in this country that call themselves patriots? Why don't you have a problem with that? Y'all are full of crap.